Tourism. Tourism refers to organized traveling for pleasure to places of interest. It includes all the services connected with the travel, for example, tourism accommodation, transport, and entertainment. Definition of ecotourism. Ecotourism refers to tourism with emphasis on the conservation of the environment. Domestic tourism. Domestic tourism refers to a type of tourism involving citizens of the country visiting particular places of interest within their country. For example, a visit by a Kenyan to Nakuru National Park. International tourism. This includes traveling for pleasure to places outside one's country for a holiday. For example, a Kenyan going to Switzerland for holiday. Factors influencing tourism in Kenya. There are various factors influencing tourism in Kenya. These factors are in two categories: physical factors and human factors. Physical factors. Physical factors are gifts of nature which human beings have no control over, although they can influence them. These factors include climate, scenery, and wildlife. Climate. Kenya has a pleasant climate, especially the sunny weather throughout the year, which is very appealing to visitors from temperate regions or cold regions during winter seasons, especially in December. Scenery. Kenya has a wide range of attractive scenery, for example, snow-capped Mount Kenya, sandy beaches, beautiful lakes, Great Rift Valley, and great rivers with numerous waterfalls. Wildlife. Kenya has a variety of flora and fauna. This includes varied vegetation type and wild animals in their natural habitat. Human factors. There are factors that affect tourism and are caused by human activities. They include traditional culture, infrastructure, accommodation, government policy, and publicity. Traditional culture. Kenya has 42 ethnic groups with distinct cultures, some of which attract tourists. For example, the Maasai traditional culture. Infrastructure. Many tourist sites and potential areas are accessible by road and in some cases by air or water. Availability of telephone facilities and wireless communication systems are available throughout the country. Accommodation. High-class international hotels and cottages have been constructed in major towns, cities, national parks, and game reserves for comfortable accommodation. Government support. The government has a full ministry in charge of tourism. There are also other bodies such as the Kenya Tourist Development, two corporations, and the Kenya Tourism Board. Tourist promotion offices are found in Tokyo, Japan, London, UK, Paris, France, and New York, USA. Presence of preserved attraction. Kenya has preserved prehistorical sites and monuments for tourists to visit. For example, Gedi ruins at the coast, Olegaisile prehistoric site in Kajiado, and Fort Jesus in Mombasa. Political stability. Kenya has enjoyed political stability and peace since independence. Training in tourism. Kenya has a number of training institutions that provide professional training in all aspects of tourism industry. For example, the Utalii College in Nairobi. Research programs. These are done by Kenya Wildlife Services and the Kenya Forest Service on both the animals and the tree species. Tourist attractions in Kenya. The map provided shows the major tourist attractions in Kenya. The tourist attractions in Kenya are grouped into two: those found at the Kenyan coast and those found in inland. The main attractions at the coast. The Kenya coast has extensive beaches from the south coast to the north of Malindi. These beaches attract tourists. The climate is warm, hence attracts the tourists from the cold temperate regions. It's ideal for swimming and sunbathing. The coastal strip is also linked up with magnificent tourist hotels and beach cottages. Malindi Marine National Park. Historical sites, for example, Gedi Ruins, Fort Jesus, Vasco da Gama Pillar at Malindi, and Shimoni Caves on South Coast. Unique mangrove forests and swamps along the coast. These occupy the shallow sea Greeks. Remarkable raised and rich culture of the people at the coast. These people are warm and hospitable to visitors. The main attractions inland. Kenya's inland tourist attractions are wildlife in its natural habitat. This includes varied fauna and flora. Kenya is a land of contrasting landscapes which include volcanic features, snow-capped Mount Kenya, Great Rift Valley, the plateaus, the plains, and lakes. Inland historical sites, for example, Kariandusi, prehistoric site near Gilgil, and Olegasile near Magadi, and several museums. Tourism is one of the leading economic activity in Kenya. The following are some of the benefits of tourism. Tourism earns the country foreign exchange. The tourism industry employs many people both directly and indirectly since it's a service industry. Problems facing tourism. The tourism industry in Kenya faces a number of problems. These are insecurity, poaching, terrorism, demand for land, and environmental pollution. Insecurity. Tourists are many a time robbed of their belongings, and the many ethnic skirmishes discourage potential tourists from poaching. Many animals are killed by poachers, which can lead to extinction of certain species of animals. Terrorism. Kenya has been a target of terrorist attacks on a number of occasions. For example, the 1998 terrorist bomb targeting the American Embassy and the Kikambala Hotel in 2002. This scares tourists to other destinations. Demand for land. Increase in population has led to encroachment into land. That land has been reserved for wildlife. This is for purposes of cultivation and settlement. Environmental pollution. Industrial development and other human activities have led to pollution of environment, particularly rivers and lakes, thus destroying aquatic life, which is a major tourist attraction. Problems associated with tourism in Kenya. Tourism, though beneficial to the economy, also creates some problems. These are encouraging poaching, increases in drug abuse, increase in crime, change in social value, overemphasis on tourism, shortage of hotel accommodation, and effect on wildlife and the environment. Increases in drug abuse. Some tourists come to Kenya with the purpose of trafficking drugs. They also provide export bases to some established destinations, while at the same time selling the drugs locally. The youth are also introduced to drugs by the tourists. Charge in social values. Tourism at times leads to erosion of social values of the local people who prefer the foreign culture, thereby leading to adoption of some practices considered unethical in the local environment. For example, the increase in the commercial sex workers at coast. Overemphasis on tourism. The government at times overemphasized development in the tourism sector at the expense of the essential areas. This leads to economic problems, especially when the targeted number of tourists is not realized and the government may have borrowed heavily to develop tourism activities. Shortage of hotel accommodation. The hotels are fully booked for several weeks during peak season, and this makes the cost of services in the hotels and game lodges to go up, and this discourages domestic tourists from visiting the local attractions. Effect on wildlife and the environment. The movement of tourists and their vehicles within the game reserves has negative impact on the fragile ecology of the parks. Some tourists throw refuse carelessly in the parks, which when swallowed are harmful to animals, especially plastics. The future of tourism in Kenya. we shall discuss the measures that need to be put in place in order to sustain the growth of tourism in Kenya. The underdeveloped tourist attraction, especially in the northeastern province and some parts of the Rift Valley, need to be developed. For example, improvement of the roads, airstrips, establishment of good accommodation, and improvement of security. Kenya has taken measures to promote tourism by setting up the Ministries of Tourism and Wildlife and Forestry, assisted by the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources. Other bodies, such as the Kenya Tourist Development Corporation, KTDC, Kenya Tourist Board, KTB, and the Eco-Tourism Society of Kenya have also promoted tourism. Kenya, with the assistance of some industrialized nations, have set up a mechanism including legislation to counter terrorist activities. Kenya is also encouraging potential tourists by improving security. The government of Kenya has shifted focus towards the development of alternative forms of tourism which contribute to the conservation of the environment, that is, ecotourism. In this session, we shall discuss similarities and differences in tourism in Kenya and Switzerland. Similarities. Some of the similarities are: Kenya has permanent glaciers on top of Mount Kenya, and Switzerland has snow-capped mountain peaks and glaciers throughout the year, and lower slopes have no snow during winter. Kenya has many waterfalls along our rivers, and Switzerland also has many waterfalls which are associated with hanging valleys. Kenya has a number of national parks with a large variety of plants and animal life, and Switzerland also has a national park with a variety of plant and animal life. Differences. There are many areas where the two countries differ in tourism. This includes: Kenya's mountains are high and steep, hence skiing sport cannot take place. Switzerland has large areas of smooth slopes covered with snow for skiing sport to take place. Kenya has a variety of physical features such as the Rift Valley, lakes, mountains and plains, while in the Switzerland the main physical feature is the Alps. Kenya's climate is warm throughout the year, while Switzerland experiences warm summer and cold winter. Kenya has a seafront where water sports such as yachting, water and windsurfing are practiced. Her beaches are sunny, which makes them ideal for sunbathing. Switzerland is landlocked and has no access to sea beaches and some of the associated sports. The abundance of marine life in the marine parks of Kenya is an attraction, but Switzerland have no seafronts, thus lacks marine life reserves. Kenya is rich in a variety of tropical flora and fauna. Animals such as elephants, cheetah, lion, giraffe and rhino are present. Switzerland lacks this kind of wildlife. Kenya is rich in traditional culture due to the different ethnic communities living in the country. Switzerland has fewer ethnic communities, therefore has less variety in culture. Switzerland has motorbike trails and special cycling routes which lacks in Kenya. Switzerland receives more visitors than Kenya. Her revenue from the industry is thus much higher compared to Kenya.